Hey guys, welcome to Horror Stories, a new series on the channel where we'll be diving into everything spooky and scary in horror movies. I'll be reviewing our favourite scary movies as well as making countdown lists on some unique stories and events in horror.
Here's Johnny!
Which brings us to our video today. We'll be looking at 10 cursed movies that were plagued by unfortunate events before, during, and after production. I'll let you guys decide if these are coincidences or acts of evil cursed spirits.
The power of Christ compels you! The power of Christ compels you!
I'll be doing a brief overview of each story of the movie and the events that inspired them. But without further ado guys, let's get into it. I'm kicking off this video with some gentle spooky stories before we descend straight into absolute chaos that some of the movies on this list were. Insidious was released in 2010 and was personally a first in this genre of horror for me and quickly became one of my favourite movies. Directed by James Wan and starring Patrick Wilson, who has become somewhat of a staple in this and the Conjuring series, Insidious is one creepy ride of a movie with lots of jump scares that made me crap my pants the first time I saw this. But we as the viewers were not the only ones to feel the effects of this movie. Many of the cast and crew complained of feeling unwell every time they stepped on set while filming the hospital scenes. Other reports explain that on an unoccupied floor of the building, members of the crew could hear a loud buzzing that would continuously go off for no apparent reason, and no explanation as to why. Maybe that's because it was a ghost! Nah, I'm just kidding. Or am I? Let's move on to number 9. Up next we have The Exorcism of Emily Rose, released in 2005 and tells a story of true events that occurred in the 70s to a woman named Anneliese Michael in Germany. The movie primarily takes us through the court case after Emily Rose's death, where Father Moore, the priest who performed the exorcisms, is trying to convince the court that everything he did was justified. The real priest reportedly performed over 60 exorcisms on Anneliese before she passed away. Here's where the spooky stuff comes in. During filming, a lot of the cast and crew complained of TVs and radios turning on late at night, normally around 3 AM, which as we all know is the devil's hour or witching hour. Actress Jennifer Carpenter, who played Emily Rose, claimed her radio would play the chorus of Pearl Jam's Alive at 3 AM and was certain that an entity of some kind was following her around the set while filming and even to her home, where spooky happenings continued. Taking up our number 8 slot is Annabelle, released in 2014 and directed by John R. Leonetti, who worked as cinematographer on The Conjuring and Insidious 2. The movie is based on true events that occurred in the 70s and centres around the Annabelle doll, which famous paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren concluded was inhabited by an inhuman spirit. During filming scenes, director John R. Leonetti came across multiple instances of 3-fingered scratches on windows and glass around the set. Eerily, people have said that the doll used to portray Annabelle in the movie has her fingers in such a position that they could match up to the marks found. I wasn't able to find any photos confirming this apart from this doll sold by Trick or Treat Studios. I'll let you decide if this is truth or not. I also found a story of when the crew were moving the demon to a room where they would take breaks. They had to walk through a hallway which would later be used for shooting a scene. While walking down the hallway, they walked under a light fixture which fell and hit the actor playing a handyman who was written to be killed in that very hallway by the demon. Pretty sus there, demon guy. Moving on to number 7, we have The Conjuring. Released in 2013 and directed by James Wan, who has been pretty much involved in every single movie in the Conjuring universe. The Conjuring tells the story of the Perron family who moved into a farmhouse in, that's right, you guessed it, the 70s, and is based on the true events that transpired there. Lorraine Warren was actually a consultant on the movie and ensured that no over-dramatization was done to enhance the story. I'd love to go into more detail on this movie in the future as there is such a rich story to dive into.
Hey, wanna play hide and clap?
While preparing for the movie, actress Vera Farmiga was feeling very uneasy about making it, to the point where she would leave the script of the movie outside her house. Vera experienced several other occurrences, one of which occurred after she agreed to be in the movie. In an interview, she tells us that she opened her laptop to find 3 claw marks on the screen. In the same interview, she also shows us a photo of 3 claw marks on her leg after waking up the day after filming had wrapped. Another chilling report was made by the crew during filming. The real Perrin family would visit the set, and some claimed to have felt gusts of wind following the family wherever they went. Some of the spirits were latched onto the family in the movie as opposed to haunting the house, so maybe some of those spirits still remain with them. So guys, we've touched on some paranormal happenings, but this is the part of the video where we dive straight into the disturbing and tragic. This is perhaps one of the most famous and tragic accidents to ever take place during the production of a movie. During filming The Crow, which was released in 1994 and directed by Alex Proyas, the lead actor Brandon Lee, who was the son of famous martial artist Bruce Lee, was filming a scene where Lee's character is to be shot by one of the main antagonists' funboy from close range. Earlier in production, there was reportedly a shortage of blank rounds on set, so to save time, the crew modified live rounds to make dummy rounds to use in the gun for a close-up shot of the bullets. Unfortunately, the tip of one of those live rounds remained in the barrel of the gun, and that same gun was used in the scene where Lee got shot. The issue occurred when the gun was fired with its blank round and dislodged the metal tip of the previously loaded live round, and that tip hit Lee in his abdomen, just above his navel.
Take your shot, fun boy. You got me dead bang.
Lee was quickly rushed to hospital where he was operated on for 6 hours, but was tragically pronounced dead at 1:04 AM. I could definitely see it being an absolute tragic accident with no paranormal happenings whatsoever, but The Crow was plagued throughout productions by other odd occurrences, leading to some say it was the curse of the Crow. According to actor John Polito, who played Gideon in the movie, a crew member driving a cherry picker accidentally fell into a ditch while setting up lights. When the crew came to help by lifting the cherry picker out, the technician operating the picker was hoisted up and struck an electrical pole. This led to severe burns, some claiming internally. Other events include a prop truck catching fire, a stuntman almost dying after falling from a roof set and breaking several ribs, a carpenter building the set was electrocuted, and an art department worker ended up having a screwdriver shoved through his hand. This movie turned out to be a nightmare to work on, and as the delays and accidents racked up, most of the original crew quit working on the movie. Of course, the movie was completed, but came at a great cost to the cast and crew. Was the curse of the Crow real? Our number 5 is Rosemary's Baby. Released in 1968 and based off the novel with the same name, both the novel and the movie have been credited as some of the most important creations in horror. However, once filming had wrapped, members of the cast and crew suffered tragedy. In the same year of the movie's release, composer Krzysztof Komeda was at a party and somehow managed to fall down a slope, causing him to fall into a 4-month-long coma. Komeda never regained consciousness and passed away the following year. Oddly enough, this is the same way one of Rosemary's friends is killed in the novel. In 1969, producer William Castle received mountains of hate mail and was struck with severe kidney stones. While in hospital, he was hallucinating scenes from the movie, and at one point it was reported he was heard screaming lines from the movie. Castle recovered but retired from Hollywood shortly after. The most shocking story shares ties with the frickin' Manson family. Director Roman Polanski's then girlfriend Sharon Tate was due to be cast as Rosemary in the movie, but Mia Farrow was eventually chosen to play the part. Tate was reportedly seen loitering around the set and was becoming increasingly involved in the occult, being quoted saying, "The devil is beautiful." In August 1969, Tate was murdered by the Manson family. Now we're getting down to the business end of the list. For our number 4, we have Poltergeist, released in 1982 and directed by Tobe Hooper, a man we can thank for giving us the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. You absolute legend, Tobe. Poltergeist could be regarded as one of the first movies to really bring the paranormal style of horror we know today to our screens, and is one of the first movies people think of when you think about 80s horror. Despite the success of the movie, it wasn't without its fair share of tragedy and spooky tales. One case is reports that co-producer Steven Spielberg used real human skeletons instead of prop skeletons to save money. Rumours have flown around as to where they came from, with the most common answer being they were from a science research school. Tragically, the movie's young star Heather O'Rourke, who played Carol Ann, who gave us this famous line,
They're here.
passed away in 1988 at the age of 12 after suffering cardiac arrest and septic shock from an undiagnosed intestinal issue. Some say this was due to the curse of the movie, but I feel this was just a huge tragedy. People feared this movie was so cursed that when the time came to making the sequel, a real exorcism was performed late at night on the set by actor Will Sampson, who was a strong spiritual believer, being from Native American descent. At number 3 on the list, we have The Exorcist. This movie released in 1973 and could be a contender for the most well-known horror movie of the past 50 years. On the movie's release, it was labelled the most disgusting movie of recent time, and there were numerous reports of theatregoers passing out during screenings.
Jesus Christ, who lives and reigns with the Father and the Holy Spirit. Damien!
Despite this, people flock to see the movie, but we aren't here to talk about the movie's success. We're here for the weird stuff that happened during production. One of the most notable incidents was when a fire broke out on set which destroyed everything and led to delays due to a total reconstruction being required. Oddly, one room was left completely unaffected by the fire, the room of possessed character Regan. Delays to production continued after actress Ellen Burstyn wrenched her back during filming of the scene where she gets slapped by a possessed Regan. Apparently director William Friedkin wanted more from the performances and requested that the crew member operating the wires on Ellen pull twice as hard to get a more realistic reaction. I don't know if that's a paranormal curse or just a director being an arsehole, to be honest. One of the most controversial reports is the use of actual demonic voices recorded and mixed into the soundtrack from a real exorcism that took place in Rome. The director claimed to have never used the sounds but has claimed he emulated the sounds to use for the demon. This has led many to believe the movie is evil and dangerous. It's been one hell of a ride, guys, but strap yourself in because we are on the home straight of Crazy Town. Our number 2 slot goes to The Omen. Released in 1976, this was a super close contender for the number 1 slot, but it was just pushed down into second place. The Omen tells us a story of a family who adopted a child after failing to have their own, and after many strange occurrences, we are led to believe this child is the Antichrist. Strange occurrences didn't just happen in the story. Dangerous and tragic events transpired before, during, and after production. Screenwriter David Seltzer's plane was struck by lightning during production, and bizarrely, executive producer and actor Gregory Peck were also struck by lightning while on a plane. Both events happening very, very close to the other. For context, studies show that on average there is 1 strike per plane per year. I guess the crew decided to get all their lightning strikes out together, as another crew member was also struck by lightning while on the plane, and the producer of the film was narrowly missed by lightning while in Rome. Another plane-related incident occurred when the crew had scheduled for a plane to be chartered to get some aerial shots for the movie, but due to schedule conflicts, they had to reschedule. The same plane departed the airport and would end up crashing, tragically killing everyone on board. The most shocking incident to happen involves special effects director John Richardson and his assistant Liz Moore. After filming had wrapped on The Omen, they would take a job working on a movie in the Netherlands. While driving, the pair were involved in a car crash which saw Liz horrifically decapitated, eerily similar to the decapitation portrayed in the film. If that wasn't enough, once John had come to from the crash, he saw a road sign that read Omen 66.6 kilometers. Before we get to our number 1 slot, I have an honorable mention of 2005's Amityville Horror. This is a story I've done a lot of research on, so I just had to add this in at some point. 1979's Amityville is perhaps one of the more famous depictions of a true event story, but I don't think the 2005 remake is all that bad. And it had its fair share of spooky occurrences during filming.
Look around.
During production, lead actor Ryan Reynolds and some of the crew reportedly found themselves continuously waking up at 3:15 AM, which is the same time Ronald DeFeo Jr. was said to have murdered his family. Oddly, this also happens to Ryan Reynolds' character throughout the movie. Other odd occurrences include a dead body of a fisherman washing up on the shore of the filming location, and tragically the death of the real Kathy Lutz happened during filming. Our number 1 is maybe a movie that not many people would have heard of. I certainly hadn't before making this video, and that movie is ATUK. Not a horror movie, but definitely a movie showered in tragedy which have led many to believe the script was cursed. ATUK was originally a book about a native Alaskan poet who gets sent to Toronto. In the movie, the story was slightly adjusted and our main character finds himself in New York. The production of this movie spans well over a decade, with so many problems leading to it ultimately being left unmade and 6 people tragically losing their lives. Starting in 1982, the leading role of ATUK was initially going to be given to John Belushi. You may know John Belushi from the Blues Brothers movie and one of the original cast members on Saturday Night Live. A few months after reading the script and showing a lot of interest in playing the lead role, John had passed away in his hotel room from what had seemed to be a drug overdose. The movie would be put on the shelf until 1986, where American comedian Sam Kinison got involved and agreed to play the leading role. In 1988, production began on the movie, but Kinison, who had creative control, stopped the movie and began to rewrite the script. There'd be no movement on production again until 1992, where negotiations after several lawsuits have finally opened up. But during this time, Kinison passed away after a head-on collision with a drunk driver. It would be 2 years before a new name would surface for the lead role of ATUK. John Candy, whose on-screen presence was extraordinary in the roles he played, picked up the script and was ready to dive into production of the movie. Tragically, Candy suffered a heart attack in March of 1994 and passed away while working in Mexico. After Candy read the script, it was reported that he had given it to his friend Michael O'Donoghue to potentially get him involved in the movie. O'Donoghue also passed away in November of the same year after suffering a cerebral hemorrhage. We get to 1997, and this is the last year production of ATUK was attempted. Actor and comedian Chris Farley was offered the lead role, and after hearing that his idol John Belushi had been a part of the movie, Farley was very interested to play the role. Shockingly, Farley passed away in December of 1997 at the same age as Belushi and via the same drug overdose. Before Farley's passing, he had given the script to a friend, Phil Hartman. 5 months after Farley's death and after reading the script, Hartman was murdered by his wife. Since then, there's been no word on ATUK ever being made, and after 15 years of tragedy, I do not blame the studios for leaving it alone. So what do you guys think? Are these movies cursed? I feel in some circumstances, these are just horrific accidents, but as a believer in the supernatural, I also feel if your subject matter is somewhat touching on demonic entities and possession, then maybe that door is open just a little bit wider. I hope you enjoyed today's video as much as I enjoyed making it. Let me know what other top 10s you guys would like to see on the channel, and if you're here for the first time, you know where that sub button is. Take care guys, stay spooky.